Time for our big stat fueled by Gatorade, and it looks at the NCAA women's tournament. The amount of victories in the last 2 years. LSU has 9, Iowa has 8. Guess what? Those two meet up. The last time they played was exactly 365 days ago in the national championship game, and LSU won. As for tonight's matchup, let's check in with Kylan Mills.
Thanks, Mike. I'm joined now by Maryland Hall of Famer Christy Winter-Scott. Great to have you here to talk more about top-seeded Iowa taking on third-seeded LSU. Now, this is a rematch of the 2023 national title game, which the Tigers won by 17. However, a lot different personnel on both sides this time around. What are some of the differences and similarities you're expecting in this matchup?
Well, the differences, let's start there. Let's start with personnel for both teams. They're very different. You heard Kate Martin talk about that in their press conference. She said they're different, but so are we. When you're looking at Iowa, they're missing 2 of their key cog starters, but they're bringing 11 players back with experience of going all the way to the final game of the year last year. So when you're looking at what LSU did last year and how they're different, they had players coming off the bench who were averaging 7 points, Alexis Morris, and knocking in threes and coming up big with 21, 22 points. So they had impact players that were outside of the star roles. So when you're looking at what Angel Reese did, she had 15 points, but she was in foul trouble in that first half last year in the championship game. And then for Caitlin Clark, she had big numbers. She had 30 points, but she was just 9 of 22 from the floor. So it was tough for her to get those 30. But we're talking about Caitlin Clark right now. So that's what's going to be a little bit different. I think defensively, you're going to see maybe some changes on the Iowa side. But on the rebounding side, I mean, LSU leads the country in boards. So I think that stayed the same.
To dig more into that rebounding battle, not necessarily one of the strengths of this Iowa team, and this LSU team averages more than 16 offensive boards per game. In order for Iowa to get out and run like they want to do, they have to be able to grab those rebounds. How do they disrupt the Tigers on the glass?
Well, what Iowa likes to do defensively, they like to mix it up. So they're going to stay player to player sometimes. That's what Lisa Bluter calls their man-to-man defense. Yeah. But sometimes they'll go with a triangle and 2, and everyone knows that, right? They like to pack the line, but they also like to run some 2-3 zone. They mixed it up last year against LSU as well, but everyone, I don't think that it's true when people say you can't rebound out of a zone. You've got to check your left and right and find a body and maintain that contact. And I know it's easier said than done. Trust me, I was down in there trying to box out in the Final Four way back in the day. But when you're talking about what LSU can do on the glass, they love to maximize their offensive rebounding opportunities. Top 5 in the country with those 16 boards per game. So, yes, they've got to get the stops. It doesn't necessarily always have to be on the glass, but for Iowa, they've got to get into those gaps. They've got to take away those driving spaces, especially for Johnson. She was so tough in their last game with those 24 points, but she did it in attack mode against UCLA, got downhill and finished in the paint. So they got to take the paint away, number one, but then they also have to disallow the second chance opportunities for LSU.
On the positive side, Iowa's offense much more balanced in their win over Colorado. 5 players averaging in double figures after just 4 players scored in their win over West Virginia in the second round. Who needs to step up in this matchup against LSU for this Iowa offense to be successful outside of Caitlin Clark?
Well, it's got to be Sydney Falter. I think she has just been absolutely spectacular in her role. She has starred in that role, especially in the absence of Molly Davis with that knee injury. We thought we may see Molly Davis in the postseason. Haven't seen her yet, which is just fine. But I think Sydney Falter has just been ready to go. And I think when you've seen the steadiness and the consistency with what she's been able to do, not just on the offensive end where she has been magnificent, but on the defensive end and on the glass, they're going to need every bit of what Sydney Falter brings to the table. And then Kate Martin's the glue. We understand that as well. And then Gabby Marshall, she has just been fantastic too from range, and they've needed all of that. But everyone is going to have to step up and be on their A game if they want to punch a ticket to the Final Four yet again.
Falter, by the way, shooting 58% from the floor, 58% from 3, has only missed 1 free throw since Molly Davis's injury. Just goes to show how ready she was to step into that starting role. Once again, Iowa taking on LSU in what is going to be a huge Monday night matchup. Unfortunately, though, this weekend, the road came to an end for Indiana. The Hoosiers fell to the top overall seed, South Carolina, 79-75 in the Sweet 16. The loss also marked a bittersweet goodbye for one of the program's all-time greats in forward Mackenzie Holmes.